Hey guys, welcome back for another video. My name's Deja and today we're going to be doing a giveaway of the arrtx acrylic marker set of 36. I've worked with them in the past with their 60 count acrylics and I really liked working with them. I remember how juicy they were. I still use them in my sketchbook literally all the time. They're like so nice because you could bring them anywhere and they really dispense a lot of color. But today we're going to be going through their 36 count, which has a brush tip. So I'm super excited about that because you get those really fine lines if you'd like to just, not press down as hard. But if you do want to press down a little bit harder, you get a much thicker line and consistency. And just like with the other ones, it does lay down well on the paper so far. So I'm excited to get started. For each of these, I'm going to start with a little bit of a grid just to keep myself in check. I feel like sometimes I really just want every sketch to kind of dominate the page, or I don't want it to, but it accidentally does. And I had a few ideas for this page, so I wanted to be sure that I could actually fit everything I wanted to get on there. This is actually my first time working in an arrtx sketchbook in comparison to my, regular sketchbook. So I'm excited to see how it holds up against all of the layering and blending that I like to do with acrylic markers. But we will see. Right now, I'm going ahead and I'm trying to draw the reflection of a dog walking through water. So keeping those squiggly lines, trying to imagine, or not really imagine, let's face it. I'm looking at a reference photo. Actually, here, this is my reference photo. And I'm trying to replicate what it looks like, but also keep it more simple. Like at the end of the day, I'm not trying to draw the picture before me. I'm trying to draw my version of that. And my version is much easier. So really just trying to capture the shapes that pop out at you. I sometimes like to just squint my eyes a little bit and see the basic shapes that I can find through squinted eyes, and then from there draw that. I feel like that makes sense in my head, so I hope it makes sense in your head. But anyways, when you work on the reflections, I like to just do the basic circles that you're going to be using instead of working on each individual ripple, because otherwise I'll kind of lose my mind when the circle doesn't perfectly align with each other. But if you don't care about that, you do things as you please. As for how I please, I always like to start off with a nice vibrant saturated color for my base coat. I don't typically do this all the time with my portraits, but I really do love doing this with my landscapes because I feel that it makes the piece way more dimensional when you have these saturated colors shining through the layers of like paint and blending that you've been putting on the page. So knowing that I'm going to be making the water pink, I really want to have that yellow shine through and make that pink way more vibrant of a color as it contrasts against the yellow. So I'm doing the same thing with the sand, starting off with that light yellow, knowing that I'm going to be going in with a little bit of a peach right on top of it. But before that, I'm also considering sandwiching my layers. And what made me think of this was actually a TikTok I watched about a nail artist like doing jelly nails with pink hearts between them. I thought it was so cute, but what I picked up from it was the ability to just, I guess just paint between layers, that you see them in different layers. So I'm giving that a try now, and I really do like the way it came out because later I don't want the sand to look like this. I don't want it to look spotty and dotty. I want it to look cute. So I'm gonna let that dry as I start to work on the shadows in the water at this point. Making sure to start with the biggest piece, and then from there we'll move right on into all the rest of the layering with the water and the highlights and yada yada. Now that we've got our little toe beans down, we're gonna go ahead and start working on the ripples in the water. Going in with the lightest color in our arsenal that is not white, we have this yellowy cream white color. So I'm just marking down all of the places on the original lines that I drew for myself with the ripples, just randomly placing down where the light's touching the top of that ripple. I am looking to my reflection, or hello, the reflection in the reference photo every here and there, but really I'm kind of just creating what I want to see at this point, simplifying it and making sure that what I'm creating looks like a ripple. Then from there, I'm going to use a light pink color to just prep these spaces for actually blending out to a much darker color, because from here we're going to be switching into a dark pink and another pink that's just lighter than that, just so that we could be sure that the light that's touching the water is very different in terms of, the actual values that we're seeing. This is one of those times where you really don't want to blend your colors to all heck for the sake of whatever perfection that you think you're creating. It's a moment where you really do need that stark color contrast to tell the story of this water. It's not perfectly blended out. When you look out onto any pond or lake or anything like that, you just see this light glistening on the water randomly as it waves through, and different ripples go up and down and blah blah blah. You guys know how water works, but we're trying to create that in a still image, trying to capture a single moment where the light is touching the peak of this water. So don't blend it no matter how much you really want to. There's of course the time and the place, but right now you really just want to put a lot of emphasis on the actual highlights of the water. Now let's talk about blending, because there is a time and place, and we are starting that time and place on this sand right here. I know that where the water meets the actual sand, it's going to be a little bit darker because we want to make sure that we're showing that there's still a little bit of translucent water on top of the sand as it kind of meets the shore. But for now, we're just trying to actually correct the color of the sand on there in general, using a little bit of orange, a little bit of yellow, and as you guys can see, we still see those speckles of color underneath. So I'm super happy with the way that looks as of now, but we really want to be sure to let this dry so that we're not blending it through as we start to add the actual, little ripples onto the shore. Now that the base of our water is completely dry, we can start to add the shadows of the ripples. I'm always going underneath them, or really just to the same side every single time, because I'm trying to consider the light source that they're being, put under, as well as, just where I kind of feel like putting them. Sometimes, it's about learning through doing instead of just always referring to a reference or referring to what you think goes best. Sometimes it's about experimenting with your art and figuring out what you really do and don't like yourself, because sometimes it's not what you might expect. Now, since there's a little chunk of negative space here in the top left of the water, I've decided to kind of just go in and do some wet blending with various colors and values just so that I can kind of, spruce up the area. So I really do like to use the wet on wet blending method when I'm working with acrylic markers. You can use your finger, you can use a pencil or a sponge or, not a pencil. A paintbrush or a sponge or whatever you want to actually blend if you're looking for a different consistency, or if you don't want to get paint on your hands, you can always use gloves, but I highly recommend doing a wet on wet because otherwise you'll kind of find that colors stick on top of each other instead of blending nicely into each other. So just keep working with what you got. Like, I'm a big advocate for experimenting with your work and figuring out what works best for you. So if you have any tips or tricks that you think work better with blending, definitely let me know, because I'm always trying to figure out the best ways to get these things done faster, more efficiently, more fun. So let me know what you think. Comment below some of your favorite tips using acrylic markers, and I'd love to be able to share and grow with y'all. Speaking of sharing, if you'd like to enter this giveaway, you need two things. The first is to be subscribed to my channel, and the second is to like and comment on this video. If you'd like to submit your name twice, then you can go ahead and like and comment on any other video on my channel as well. I'll give more details on when I'll be announcing the winner and how a little bit more towards the end of the video. Okay, so here's the deal with laying down the background on this one. There's no deal at all. I swished, I flicked, I had a little Harry Potter moment, but I did in fact forget to record everything after that. Okay, not everything. Just the very first layer of color. I chose to use a magenta in the top right for the shadow of the tree above the lake, and then a light pink in the center and a dark pink in the bottom right to give a little bit of dimension, but also show that there are other trees somewhere in the distance of this lake kind of reflecting down on it. I've been trying to experiment with different kinds of scenes that I'd like to include in the series that I've been working on, so this is definitely an option that I am considering. As I go into 2025, I really want to start learning how to work with different landscape elements, so water and reflection on water, as well as flowers and different foliage is really up there on like a list of goals that I want to get to this year. I don't necessarily need to be perfect at them by the end of 2025, but I definitely want to feel more confident as I go into, every painting that I create, instead of feeling more confident towards portraits. So I'm ready to mess up a bunch of times and try to figure out ways to fix it and share with you guys the best ways to do just that. But for now, let's see what we could do with a little bit more practice of these reflections. Now, I didn't know it yet, but these three little dots had changed something in me, in my painting, in the painting before it, as I went back and added so many glistening little dots, absolutely, because this is exactly what the water looks like at sunrise and sunset, and it's just like, romanticizing the water in the way that I need. So this was, of course, applied to every painting on the sheet. Now, as I'm working on these flowers on the lake, I am considering how thickly I'm trying to apply the paint. knowing that it dries just a little bit thinner than it looks when you first apply, but I'm not upset about that. I really am someone who likes to build up on color to have the option of how translucent I do or don't want it to be. Like right now, the flowers to the right, I definitely didn't layer as much as the ones to the left because I want that darker magenta to shine through in comparison to the ones to the left. Once I know that the first layer of paint is completely dry, I go back in with the lighter color, in this case white, to kind of brighten up the parts where the sun is supposed to be touching down on the flowers in comparison to the shadow of the tree on top of it. So I'll be doing a majority of the flowers to the left, but as you can see, as it's drying, we do get a little bit more of a sheer color, so I can build that up as I want to later. But I'm not trying to be too precious about where I'm putting my white down right now. I'm trying to, just make it look like there are a bunch of petals around and not focus as much on the true shape of it, except for the ones to the bottom. Now, this is the closest I'd come to saying I messed up. Choosing these colors, not my best move. And that's not to say that I'm not happy that I chose them. I do love experimenting, as I said before, but this experiment didn't go well. I wanted to add more orange because I had used it a little bit in the first sketch, and it was just too much orange. So I decided, hey, it's just the first layer. Let's go ahead and get some pink on that and start again. Luckily, these colors were so easily neutralized by that pink. If it was a green, which is the opposite on the color spectrum, that would have been a whole other story. But that's not our story, okay? Our story is trying to figure out how to add more orange and satisfy that creative itch. So we're gonna do that. We're just going to use different colors to help balance it out. Realistically, I probably should have done these clouds before I worked on the tree, but I didn't, so it's fine. Like if I get it on the tree, I could always just do another layer of the dark purple, which I did. But at this point, I'm just considering the reflections in the water, what you might see at dusk, and then of course adding all of those glimmers that I love so much from the other sketches as well, to reflect the stars, but also to show, that moon beaming down onto the water and just having it glisten in that way as well. Now, daytime Deja was done sketching here, but nighttime Deja had an itch to scratch and did a lot more flowers on the page. And while I did love experimenting with them, I didn't love the colors of the petals. I felt like it just wasn't, I don't know, it's something about it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the darker purple. I wanted to have them be a little bit lighter in terms of like my values and tones on the page. So first things first, we're just gonna kind of neutralize this purple color with that light pink. And then from there, we'll add some more layers of color, honestly, until we get to a place that I'm happy with. Realistically, I probably should have done some type of like color mapping ahead of time, but I really was just excited about playing with these markers, and I love layering so much anyways that something like this feels a little bit more like an opportunity to me than it does a hassle per se. Everything was going so well. I was tackling stress well, handling my problems, and then this. It splattered because I was way too eager about opening it, and I don't. Now I just have to deal with it. So I'm trying to again balance that purple color with a little bit of light pink first and foremost, and then adding a little bit of yellow to kind of fight off the purple, because again it's the opposite of the color wheel. And then from there adding a much brighter yellow, and now I'm making fireflies all across the page because that was the next best thing I could do in order to not, I don't know, get upset that the universe had ruined my sketch page. Instead, I saw it as an opportunity to try something different, to bring the whole page together, and I'm really happy that I did because I really like how the page came out. And I'm looking forward to playing around with these artx markers a little bit more in my sketchbook going forward. If you'd like to do the same, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment, and I'll be announcing the winner in my video on Friday, February 28th. So be sure to check it out, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.